Hi, Joy.
Hi, Joy.
Hi, Deepika.
Joy is an MSc in clinical psychology, and he's a PTSTA, which is a provisional teaching and supervising transactional analyst. He is a psychotherapist. He used to be in finance. His last corporate job was as vice president of Societe Generale, which is a French bank. He was vice president finance over there. And he then decided to quit his corporate job and realized that his passion was in enabling people to live fulfilling lives. Looks like there is still an echo. What I will do, Joy, is ask the question and let you speak so that we can start the conversation. So, Joy, to begin with, mental health is a very, very vast topic. Can you tell us in very simple terms, how does one define mental health? How do you differentiate between a person who is mentally healthy and not?
So I would say mental health, or the word health, is actually defined as absence of illness. Okay, so health is seen, even with respect to physical health, health is seen as a spectrum between illness and wellness. So I'm just showing my hands to show the spectrum. Now, the health depends on where in between the spectrum you lie. So let's say this is wellness and this is illness. You are more towards wellness if your inner functioning, which is thinking and feeling, is supporting your external functioning, which is living your life. So if your thoughts and feelings are oriented towards living your life in an efficient manner, solving your problem, coming up with your options, then you are more towards the well-being side or the healthy side.
Okay.
And more you have a trouble in resolving your own problems, you are moving towards the illness side.
Okay.
So this is a very simple way to look at it. The World Health Organization defines mental health with several criteria. So that is, I would say, very difficult to relate for someone who is looking at quickly understanding what is mental health.
Okay. So if I were to summarize that, if we are able to cope peacefully or resolve problems that we face on a day-to-day basis without much strife, without much difficulty and much pain, then we can say that we are in good mental health.
Yeah, we are more towards the well-being side of the spectrum.
Side. All right. Okay. So Joy, there are a lot of self-help books being written today, and a lot of people read those books or talk to friends and feel like they are receiving help. That is one school of thought. The other school of thought is that it's better to take professional help from a therapist. And the reason is probably because a therapist may be unbiased and objective. What is your view on that?
So I'll connect the answer to your question to the previous answer about mental health.
Right.
So let's first understand what is the reason it is difficult for some people to cope up with some situations. So from childhood, even from birth, we are developing a pattern within for thinking, feeling, and behaving. And this pattern is called personality. We can call this pattern as personality of a person. The unique way in which a person thinks, feels, and behaves. And this starts to develop from childhood and is in the process of development even now. So we have a big layer of personality built up within us, and we uniquely respond to certain situations in a specific manner. So each person have a specific way of responding to certain situations, like a crisis or a stressful situation. Now, if you want a long-term change in the way you respond, or if you want to cope much better in a situation than what you are doing, it is required for us to rehaul the personality or change
Okay.
the personality. And changing personality is a science. It is pretty much like a surgery. I don't want to scare audience saying that it is like a surgery, but it is. For a professional like a psychotherapist, we see personality in form of structures and what needs to change, what are the methods or interventions required to change certain aspects of personality. All are a science. So taking a scientific approach uh, will yield much better return on investment. So that is my opinion.
Okay.
How friends and social connections can help is to support, as in to maintain so that the person does not go further down. But if a change in life is what you are looking for, professional help is the best way to go.
Okay. A crisis, you mentioned crisis in life, like current crisis, for instance. This is a humanitarian crisis. And a lot of us, even as we have been looking forward to a time when we can, take a break, pursue things that hobbies or other passions that we haven't had time for, a lot of us are struggling with the lockdown, with the forced being at home. Some people are working from home, so the day is sort of structured. There are entrepreneurs and solopreneurs who not only have relatively less work at the moment, some of us, maybe no work at all, and entrepreneurs have the additional pressure of teams that they have to support, employees, associates that they have to continue to support in this time. All of this can amount to a lot of stress,
Absolutely.
right? So how does this or I'm sure, rather than how does this affect mental health, because I'm sure it does affect people's mental health, what are the different ways in which it plays out in different people, this the stress and the anxiety?
So the manifestation can vary based again on the personality of the person. So some has a propensity to feel anxiety sooner. Some has a propensity to feel depressed. Some may have a cognitive distortion, which means they may overthink. So based on how the personality has adapted
Right.
to stress and the type of stress they are facing, the manifestation can vary a lot.
Okay.
But to understand the reason for this happening is primarily so one key factor is social isolation. So when there is an isolation, it is a break from the regular routine. So human contact and recognition is required for all of us. So in psychology, we call it as strokes. Stroke is a unit of recognition. So when one person looks at you, smiles at you, shakes your hand, that is a stroke that you are getting. We are in between strokes when you go out and when we work or when we go to study, when we meet friends. We are in midst of a sea of strokes. Now this lockdown has forced a situation of social isolation, and hence we are deprived of the strokes. And the strokes are very much necessary for mental well-being. Strokes are like food for the mind, food for the emotions. So we are deprived of these strokes, and due to that, our vulnerability towards the whatever I would say weakness or something that is there that is ready to manifest, that vulnerability increases.
Okay.
So that is one aspect. The second aspect is there is a lot of fear associated with such situation. One primary fear is like what you mentioned is about the people having an uncertainty about their jobs.
Right.
So even in the best case scenario of salaried employees, they are asked to work from home right now. But since work volume is low and the business of the company suffer, people are having this doubt that will my job stay? Will it continue? These kind of concerns are affecting them. And for entrepreneurs and consultants like us, it is even more because the amount of inflow of job will reduce significantly. So this also brings in the stress of uncertainty about livelihood. Then the fear of infection because the disease is going around.
Right.
So all these fears also play a role. And it's also possible that there is loss and suffering, real suffering that is happening. For example, the infection for some friend or relative, or because of this lockdown, certain basic necessities are not available. So certain families who have individuals who have other health problems which requires constant care and moving around to get the supplies, this also will face a block. So these things also add to the stress in such situations. So whenever stress builds up in our system, we move closer towards the illness part of the spectrum.
Okay. So are you saying in a way that stress could make us more susceptible also to the illness?
Absolutely. Susceptibility is the right word.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it could weaken immunity. It's
The emotional immunity.
right.
And what we call it as resilience.
Yes, resilience. All right.
Yeah.
So it's important to find ways to overcome stress, to overcome fear. Is that right? I think that
That
would
is
be,
right.
yeah.
So we need cope. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so I was asking, how can we cope? Also, I've heard that there is a difference between coping and actually being okay.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And that is a much bigger question.
Right.
So I'll come to that. So which do we answer first, about the coping versus being okay, or about coping in this situation?
So I think coping is a step easier, and being okay, it requires a lot more work from each of us, right?
Yes.
So let's go with the coping.
Okay, the easier one first.
Yes.
Okay. For coping with the situation, we basically need to counter the influences that are happening based on the situation. So one thing is about social isolation and stroke deprivation. So there is this, before the lockdown came, this term came called social distancing.
Right.
Yeah. So actually what is required is a physical distancing, not social distancing. We thankfully have the online medium in this era where we can still connect and we can still get the stroke needs met.
Right.
So one step everyone needs to do is actively engage with people through online media or telephones, etc., so that they are not feeling isolated and cooped up. So that is one step. Yeah. The another aspect is the lack of physical activity. So usually people have some self-maintenance method to keep up their health. For example, walking or jogging, going to gym, yoga, things like this.
Right.
So now since the gyms, pools, everything is closed down, there is very less opportunity to go out and work out. And even I live in a community, even evening walks are not permitted here. No walks are permitted here.
Yeah.
So even taking pets out for a walk is like only in minimal situations it should be there.
Right.
So in such a situation, it is necessary to work out at home or move body at home in some way or the other, so that body produces endorphin, it's a feel good hormone, which will keep mood up.
Right. So far you've mentioned actively staying in touch with
Yes.
friends and family, and some amount of physical activity.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have more, but I have a small question here. As far as physical activity is concerned, right? A lot of people are not used to exercise. Right now, by force, we all have to clean and do some amount of physical movement. Cleaning is quite a bit of it, actually. But I know of a lot of people who are also okay to just let it be for a few days, and the place will have to get really filthy before they can motivate themselves to clean it up. Are there any ways in which people can overcome this?
I would say that clean one particular day and see how you feel.
Okay.
You'll feel really good.
Okay.
And you would want to feel that every day. Seeing a clean house in front of you, you will want to feel that every day. And that achieves two things in one shot. You'll get some workout also in cleaning. So
Yes,
cleaning and
absolutely.
keeping your space orderly was the next thing I was going to say. Because you are seeing your world has been limited to these walls that you are constrained to.
Yes.
And keeping that space orderly in front of you is very much necessary on how you feel inside.
Right. Now, see, the thing is, I can relate to that because I generally like to be organized and all that. But there are a lot of people, there is method to my madness. I'm differently organized. We hear this in normal conversation. A lot of people don't particularly care for structure or for having a particular place for things and stuff. What about them? Is it okay for them to continue, or should they also get some order in their lives at this point?
If it is working for them, why not? Let them
Okay.
remain in filth.
Okay, fine. Right. Each to their own, basically.
Yeah, I think so. Because if it's working for them, I wouldn't question their means.
Okay.
But I would still urge to try out different means and see which is working better.
All right. Particularly at this time, you'd urge them to try a different way. All right.
Yeah.
So that's staying in touch, physical activity, and keeping your space organized.
Yes.
Okay. What else can we do?
Another thing I can think about is journaling your inner thoughts and feelings on a regular basis.
Okay.
Because many a times these thoughts and feelings invade us without us being aware of it.
Okay.
So many of those undergoing lockdown are having this feeling of uselessness.
Okay.
Am I useful to this world? Am I useful in my life?
Right.
So that is happening because of the temporary stoppage of work or the things that they consider productive. So when they used to work, they considered themselves as doing something productive. Suddenly that opportunity stopped. So even if they are getting paid or even if they have reserves to live on, suddenly they are going into this state of, am I being useful? So thoughts like this can be invading us and causing stress to build further. Getting awareness of these thoughts can give us a lot of power.
Okay. All right.
So which is why I suggest that we can journal on a daily basis and read them and see if it is actually aligning to reality or not. We humans have tendency to exaggerate or maximize certain problems.
Okay. So it helps us to stay in check with reality. For example, maybe some of us may have reserves to pay rent for the next few months, to pay EMIs for the next few months, and even a little spare. Yet we might worry more than is necessary. I'm not saying that there's no need to worry at all, but and maybe would it be safe to say that this journaling would also help us to structure our day and time? Does structuring the day and time help?
Structuring also is another aspect, another step that can be done for coping in these stages.
Okay.
I wouldn't mix it with journals because this journal is a thoughts and feelings journal. Structuring time would be another kind of a diary or a daily structuring of what do I want to do.
Right.
So there are many things that you might have put off because you are too busy at work.
Right.
Those are the things that you can plan in your day,
Right.
in a daily calendar. And it is essential, I think, not to fill up the day with lot of things, but to do 2 or 3 meaningful things in the day and give enough breaks.
Okay. So while structuring, not to fill up the day.
Yeah.
And maybe just do a few meaningful things.
Yes. So that,
Okay.
you can look at it and feel productive and feel that, okay, I am moving ahead in life.
Okay, so I've written these few points down so that after our conversation, I can just put it on a little slide and share it with everybody. It'll be useful.
Sure.
Okay, Joy. Now, this brings me to another question. Self-care, this word, have you heard it? I'm sure you have. You have,
Yeah.
right? It's being used a lot lately. In India, mental health conversations are fairly nascent as compared to, the West, where these conversations have been on for a longer time and are in fact part of daily conversations. If you are getting angry every now and then at the workplace, your HR person will request you to see a therapist. And so they are sort of used to having these conversations, and it's not stigmatized. Whereas for us, there's still a lot of stigma where it concerns therapy. But we are slowly beginning to talk about these things. And one of the terms that I hear used a lot is the word self-care. Now, as a mental health professional, what does self-care mean? How can one translate self-care into day-to-day life?
In my understanding, self-care is an action that we do on a regular basis. Any action that we do on a regular basis as a result of love and acceptance for one's own self. Because we love ourselves, we care for ourselves. And because the way of caring for self is several things. And the things that we mentioned right now are all as things that we can do for our own self-care.
Okay.
Journaling on a regular basis, ensuring that we have enough social interactions.
Okay.
Eating healthy food so that our body is in a good state.
Okay.
So currently we are starting to recognize that mind and body are not separate. They are the same. If there are discomforts in the body, the mind gets confused whether it's a discomfort with the body or the mind.
Right.
So if you are feeling sick in the body due to bad food that you have ingested, your mind may tell that I'm not okay, I'm not fine.
Right.
So it is necessary to make sure that your diet is proper and clean. In India, we have this term called sattvic diet.
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing is a constant intent to improve one's personality. So we told about personality as a pattern of thinking, feeling, and behavior.
Right.
So looking at one's life from our journals on where are the difficulty areas for me, and constantly addressing them.
Okay.
For example, if I am in a party or a conference, if going out and meeting people, introducing myself to people is a difficult area for me, then that says something about my personality. So it is self-care to note that down and take care of that aspect. So while we say that we are taking care of that aspect, it would mean finding ways to change it either by oneself or by taking help. So taking help, we have already discussed about meeting a professional. When we say we take care by ourselves, it is about reading books about psychology and self-help, by which you can understand how to change one's own personality.
Okay. All right. So self-care also, I think journaling would benefit us in terms of self-care and the way in which we can take care of ourselves, to be aware of what our pain points are, and generally to make sure that our physiology, our mind, the way we're feeling, all of these are aligned. Right. Another, few buzzwords that we keep hearing kindness, compassion, empathy. There are a lot of quotes right now, in fact, that are being circulated about how it's important to be empathetic to one another, compassionate to one another. How does this translate into day-to-day behavior and day-to-day life?
Would you give a bit more context on your question on
Yes.
what angle you are looking at about this?
Let us say, for example, people say that when you are communicating with other people, be empathetic, be sensitive, right? Be kind and compassionate. A very popular quote that does the rounds is, everyone is fighting a battle that we know nothing about, so be kind, right?
Okay.
My question really is, there are people who are going to confront you, challenge you, annoy you. And I mean, if a person is being nice to you, there's no difficulty being nice back to them, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if a person is being abrasive or hurting you in some way, there are people who are still able to overlook that and not hurt them back, right? What kind of thought process goes behind
Okay.
that behavior?
Okay, I understand the question now. So, one primary thing about not understanding the other's battles is to understand that we have our own, each person have our own realities. Even if it is people under the same roof, family members, or spouse, anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Each individual have their own reality, and we
Right.
have no way of knowing their reality. So respecting their reality, saying that their reality is different from my reality. So, okay, you are shouting at me because of some process of yours which I don't understand.
Right.
Okay, okay. I'm not obliged to be irritated at you because of that. So taking that kind of an attitude is not just empathy and compassion to the other person.
Right.
It is also self-care. Because you are ensuring that you are not putting the relationship into trouble. You are not putting your own mental well-being into trouble.
You're not. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So when we say empathy, empathy is defined as feeling what others feel. So in this context, I will translate that it is about understanding other person's world from their shoe. Understanding doesn't mean that we comply and we do not stand up for ourselves and we take whatever is being given. It means that we understand and we respect. At the same time, we say what we need to say to represent ourselves.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I do have some more questions, but
Sure.
What about our viewers? Do you guys have any questions? How is it so far? I'm so sorry about the echo. I hope it's only on my side, even if it is there, and I hope you're able to hear Joy clearly. Let me see if there are questions. Okay, Tarun says, isn't it more like one's subconscious coming to the foreground since their reality has been put on hold? I think this may be with regard to the journaling question, but can you take that question?
Yeah. So our personality, a large part of our personality is at the subconscious level, which we call as unconscious. Means subconscious as in below conscious, which is the unconscious. So we are not aware of it on a regular daily life. So when stress builds up, we are shifted from a regular performing mode of going to job or doing our daily routine to what we call as a survival mode. When I say survival mode, I'm not saying that we are all struggling for survival in reality, but mind thinks that we are in a survival mode.
Okay.
And hence certain fears that we have pushed down to our unconscious surfaces.
Okay. So in one sense, it's a good time to reflect.
It is a good time when the inner demons will come up and you can catch them and put them in your journal and do something about it if it requires urgent attention.
So for anybody who's been waiting to improve the quality of their life, the inner life, the life within them, I guess this could be an opportune time, right?
Yes.
Deepa Shailendra, Deepa auntie says journaling is the most beautiful concept I've heard. Can do. Let's look at who else. Okay. What is depression now, Joy? How do you define depression? I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. Again, until recently, until Deepika Padukone sort of talked about her battle with depression publicly and made this word a more serious word, made people take it more seriously. I think it was used very loosely. Generally, if a person was being sad or something like that, people would say that person is depressed without completely understanding the implication of that, maybe. And maybe that person was genuinely depressed, but I don't think people who used it understood the implication. So could you tell us what depression is?
So, a simple way to understand depression is that it is a low mode that persists for an extended period of time. And if it is more and more severe, it will become difficult for a person to function regularly in life. And it requires immediate attention. Depression happens because of some issue in the unconscious. So we were talking about unconscious in the previous question. Some issue that is happening in the unconscious, which is pulling a lot of energy, so that the conscious mind doesn't have enough energy to operate.
Right.
So this is a very simple way to look at depression. If you are looking at it from a point of view of curing it. So understanding that problem that is getting stuck in unconscious is very vital for curing depression. So usually depression comes into one's life like knocking on the door, saying that there is some issue that you need to resolve, and you are completely ignoring this issue. I am here to show you that you need to stop everything and focus on me. So when we focus on that issue and get it out and understand and resolve it, depression resolves away.
Okay, so in a sense, depression is also a crisis that offers you an opportunity. Okay. Joy, before I continue with the topic on depression, there's a question from Shobhana Jayaraman.
Yeah.
She says it's a question from her husband who is viewing this video along with her.
Okay.
He says, I'm feeling settled, operating under the current circumstances. Is this something I should be concerned about? This is a great question. Isn't it?
If everything is going fine, should I be worried that something is wrong?
Yeah. Thank you for asking Shobhana's husband. Joy, take that question, please.
Yeah. I think there is no need to worry if everything is going on fine. I would invite you to be mindful of what is going on as an internal process. So I would invite you to still do your journaling just to see if what kinds of thoughts are coming, because these things have a way of accumulating for a period of time and then precipitating. So if you want to, we don't know how long this lockdown is going to continue. I heard some news about it being extended. I don't know whether it's a rumor or not.
The PM is likely to be extended.
Okay. So if that is the case, then whatever stress is acting on us is going to act on us on a linear basis. So more and more stress is going to accumulate. So it's good to know what is happening within us. Is any negative thoughts invading our mind, and to arrest it in a timely fashion, I would still suggest you to journal.
Okay. So does that answer your question? So what is your husband's name, Shobhana? Continuously referring to him as Shobhana's husband.
Shobana's husband is Sri Kumar, so he says
Sri
thanks.
Kumar. Sri Kumar. Thank you for the question,
Sri Kumar.
Suma, you asked a question.
You asked
Sorry,
a
I
question.
missed it.
Sorry, I missed it.
How to handle
How to
being
handle being
disrespected in a
disrespected
close
in a close
relationship?
relationship?
Very, very tricky question. So, when you are disrespected in a close relationship, the first thing is for you to authentically communicate your feelings in a respectful manner. So you may feel upset, you may feel irritated. It is okay for you to communicate that in a respectful manner by taking responsibility for your own feeling, which basically means that you make the statement as, I am feeling hurt when you say like this. So usually that's not what we say, right? We say that you hurt me, you disrespected me. So the problem with that kind of a retort is that the other person will get offended, and then the response will become even more aggressive, and then the conversation will not go to a closure. So the best way I have found out to handle any disrespect in a close relationship is to confront in a respectful and caring manner, but at the same time express one's unpleasant feeling. You need not say that, oh, I am fine with you disrespecting me. I am not fine. I am not fine. I feel hurt that you said like that. Let us discuss about it. So inviting to a conversation with the intent to resolve and take the relationship forward would be the correct way.
Supreet, that was Supreet's question, not Suma's. I'm still waiting for Suma's. Can you see Suma's question?
I do not see Suma's question.
Okay, maybe she's typing it again. I see Mahananda's question. She's asking from a counselor's perspective. Any pointers towards specific ethics of online counseling? I guess right now a lot of people are moving their counseling online.
So one thing is to quickly understand in the first session itself what is the issue that the person that you are consulting is going through, and to see if there is any issue like suicidal thoughts or self-harming thoughts that are invading the person.
Right.
And then close the escape hatch.
All right.
Closing the escape hatch would mean that have a agreement with the person that they will not hurt themselves during the course of the counseling or the therapy happening, and to take a regular checkpoint with the person on how their self-harming thoughts are there. So this is one aspect that needs to be taken care with respect to ethics aspect.
Okay. Mahananda, answers your question. Mahananda says, I can see Suma's question. Mahananda says, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, can a person decide not to be depressed even when the person has enough reasons to be depressed? Many of us can't have the luxury of being depressed.
A decision is at a conscious level. Depression comes from an unconscious level. So these two things cannot interact. So to tell a person to decide to not be depressed will be, asking two people to communicate when they are not connected. So of course, conscious and unconscious mind is connected, but not in a very direct way where conscious mind can tell the unconscious mind, stop doing that. That is not possible. It is when someone is depressed, that needs to be attended, and we cannot just decide it away. And of course, if this is one issue that depressed clients bring, that they don't have the luxury to be depressed at this stage of life. something important is happening to me. But I will assure you that the reason that is causing depression is much more important than what is happening in your life. That is why it is taking all resources and calling attention to it.
Right. And like you said earlier, it's calling for your attention. So maybe like a wound, like maybe a muscle pain. You don't give it attention when it calls for attention. It could get worse.
Absolutely.
Right. Suma, does that answer your question? Okay. Suma says it doesn't really answer her question.
A depressed client cannot, a depressed person cannot say that I will decide from today not to be depressed and go ahead in their life. It is not possible.
It will keep coming back from time to time.
It will not just go away just because one decides not to be depressed.
Right. See, there are people who are high functioning. For example, you read these articles on psychology and on disorders. There are people who are high functioning, yet there are things going on at the subconscious level. But essentially, what you're trying to say is that high function may also get impaired if we don't pay attention to the subconscious level.
High functioning would have already got impaired when the person has come with depression.
Okay.
So the person will not be able to, even if the person is a very efficient person in their work and doing the best employee of the year in the company, still that person may undergo depression in spite of all their efficiencies and all their capabilities.
Okay.
And unless that is attended to, and unless that depression as a feeling goes away, the person will not return back to normal function, and that requires special care. It cannot be done by oneself also. It requires a professional assistance.
Okay. So to answer Suma's question, is it okay to say you cannot choose not to be depressed, but you can suppress it, which may not be healthy.
Suppression may work not when the depression has actually manifested.
Okay.
When it starts to manifest, when the at a depressive thought level. So before the depression manifests in full scale, it may manifest at micro level with depressive thoughts. At that level, maybe suppression is possible. Okay, but even if suppressed, then it will come back and hit harder.
Okay. All right. So I'll now move on. Yeah. Sorry.
Another possibility is that these things, when suppressed, can go to a body level. A organ of the body can get affected.
I see.
So if something is pushed down, further down in the mind, and it's not attended to, a part of body can stop functioning regularly or can start malfunctioning. So that's called psychosomatic illness.
So with all this echo happening and all that, I missed also telling everybody that Joy is a certified hypnotherapist. He also uses alternative methods of therapy along with clinical psychology and TA. So he uses physiology, knowledge of the body and the connection to mental health to help people to heal. So Mahananda's question. How can a counselor be equally available or fair to both people in a couple's counseling scenario? Any ideas or pointers that have helped you?
So in a couple's counseling scenario, we need to understand who our client is. Our client is neither one partner nor the other. Our client is the relationship. So we are sitting to address and heal the relationship.
Okay.
And relationship is based on the communication. Relationship problems happen mainly because the communication is suboptimal or has broken down.
Okay.
And if a counselor pays attention to what is a pattern of communication that is happening in front of them, itself, the problem will get replicated. If we push on to find out what is the problem between the two people sitting, the problem will happen in the clinic itself. So the pattern issues in the communication can be seen in the clinic itself, and identifying those issues and unblocking those issues would be the couple counselor's responsibility, and not to take sides of one person. So the question, the name of the questionnaire is
Mahananda for the couples.
Mahananda's question is very, very relevant. It also connects to the aspect of empathy that we discussed a little bit earlier.
Right.
It is about understanding that we are sitting in front of two people who are living two different lives.
Right.
They are having two different worlds. So what one person is saying is okay according to them, what the other person is saying is okay according to them. And both needs to be respected, but the focus needs to be on the communication between the two people. Where is the communication being blocked? Where is disrespect coming in the communication? These are the aspects that a couples counselor can look at.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that answers Mahananda's question. Joy. Suma responded to your answer about depression, about the luxury to be depressed. She said that while she was going through her separation, she needed to grieve, to take time to understand and accept why things happen in life. But she says that for her, working was more important because she needed to survive. Therefore, her question about the luxury to be depressed.
Yeah. So now that I understand the context, I can empathize with the situation. So yeah, that is true. That working for survival is also a necessity. Sometimes we may feel that we cannot afford to sit at home and take care of our depression, and then after everything is healed, go back and take care of survival. Survival comes first. So I agree with that. At the same time, this is also, like Deepika said, a wound that is there within. We are living with a wound. So we are not even saying about stopping all the other parts of life and attending only to depression. But at the same time, it is necessary to get this wound attended to. Otherwise, it will take its own shape. It is possible that if the wound is not too deep, or if you have self-management techniques, then it heals on its own with time, or it gets suppressed with time. Many of these things can happen. But it is a wound and it needs attending to one point or the other, point in time or the other. That is my opinion.
Okay. Suma is well, she has sent three laughing smiles, but I think she has heard our answer and she might respond. Suma, I hope that has been helpful. And Mahananda says thank you. That was really insightful.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay, actually, I have one more question. We go for general health checkups for our body, right? Even when nothing is wrong, there is advice that post 30, once in 3 years, post 40, every year, stuff like that. So do you think people should do mental health checkups as well?
Yeah, I knew that question was coming when you said about physical checkup. So, of course, there are, if you go to a clinical psychologist, they will have a lot of tests to say whether, what is the level of your mental health. There's a lot of surveys or tests that you can undergo. But I would say that you are the best person. You can do a self-assessment whether there are, the way you are, is it currently helping your life or limiting your life? If you see a consistent pattern of things not working in your life in the exact same way, then you can guarantee from that that there is an issue in the personality due to which you are responding to situations in a consistent non-working way, and that is the best indicator for you to go and get help. Getting yourself regularly checked up at a mental health level, I don't think even a clinical psychologist, I need to check this with the clinical psychologists. I don't think they will even check or administer a test to you, even if you just walk in and say that, please find if I am healthy. They will do that only if they say that, people say that, I suspect I am under depression, then they may give you a test to see if you are in clinical depression or not. But otherwise, there is no way by which, I'm not saying no way, but I don't think there is administration of test like a general health checkup.
Okay. Super. Thank you, Joy.
Sure.
You've been very patient with answering all the questions. And thank you to all our viewers, and particularly people who asked questions. Thank you so much. My apologies if we weren't able to answer to your satisfaction. Maybe if Joy is willing, you could reach out to him and speak to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I'll see you soon tomorrow with another conversation on mental health. And that is with specific regard to relationships. The gentleman who's coming, he's a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and he specializes in marital counseling. One of the things he specializes in. So I'd request all of you to join us tomorrow as well. Take care, Joy. Thank you, and thank you to all our viewers.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Same time, 4 o'clock.
Bye.
Bye.